You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you need a wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life.
Hello, Matt. Good evening. Good afternoon. How are you? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm ready to help some needy dungeon masters, greedy dungeon masters with their problems, which is
Did
what
you know
we do here.
That every holiday season, Matt, nearly 1 in 5 dungeon masters goes without advice, and I think that's a really sad state of affairs, and I'm here, and you and I are here to make sure that doesn't happen.
In
this
the
holiday
arms of a solar.
Hello, everyone. This is Dungeon Master of None.
I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
I'm Dungeon Master Rob, and today we're going to be
Sackville Bagginses, the bad boys of D&D podcasts, here to help you out.
That's right. Tonight, this week, we're going to be giving you some DM advice. A lot of you, for some reason, email us and DM us and ask us questions. Some of you leave comments on our podcast. And so, even though it takes us months to get to those questions, and sometimes we never get to them at all, we like to answer them, so please keep sending them. I want to pull back the curtain for just a moment for our listeners.
Okay.
And make clear one thing.
Don't do that. We haven't cleaned behind the curtain, Rob. It's gross back there.
Matt and I both have full-time day jobs. In case you were not aware, this is not our occupation, as much as that might be fun and nice. And I don't ask for any pity or concern or anything or a praise. I'm just letting you know that if sometimes it takes us a while to get to things, or if as we may discuss today, we get things wrong, that's because partially because Matt and I have finite amount of time to work on this, so please adjust your expectations accordingly.
I mean, though, could you imagine if we were like professional Dungeons and Dragons people? Which, good for the people who are able to do that with their lives, but then we would be held to like such a standard that it's just, it scares me. So I'm glad we're amateurs. The same as you.
That's right. I like being an amateur. And listen, as a fan of amateur sports as well, I think there's a purity, a wholesomeness. A
republic of play, Rob.
That's exactly right. So we got a bunch of letters. Matt, anything going on in your gaming neck of the woods? Anything interesting happening?
I'm a teacher, and school is miserable for everyone right now, especially students who are at school. And well, maybe I shouldn't say especially. It's probably the students who are at home are even more miserable. But like students are stuck in like little plexiglass pods, cages, and they don't get to interact with each other or anything. So I basically run Dungeons and Dragons every day for a different group of students at lunch because it's the only fun thing we can do.
That's great.
So I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons every day at work when I should be eating my lunch.
That's great. You love to hear it.
Yeah.
I have had trouble. I don't see anybody in my real life ever, and I'm on Zoom calls all the day, so I have trouble putting together I have had trouble putting together a virtual game with my regular groups. Though I am wrangled enough people together from one of my groups. I think we're gonna try while we wait for things to settle down maybe and decide on a longer term campaign. We're gonna run maybe Ghosts of Saltmarsh. I was poking through all the books that I have bought and reviewed over the past couple of years, and I was like, which of these can I run that won't require a lot of extra effort or focus or attention from me? And I was like, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, that'll be good. And if the players like it, they pick it up, we might stick with it. Otherwise, I'll go back to something else. But what I discovered, Matt, was that my time and energy and bandwidth for something like deep homebrew, which is a lot of what I had been doing, is basically at a rock bottom. I have my creative juices are sucked dry by the vampire of coronavirus. I don't know. Metaphor is getting away from me, but you know what I mean.
I do. Just go with what is easy and fun.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's actually exciting. I'm looking forward to running people through some old school D&D, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, 5th edition, updated modules. Should be fun. Should be a good time.
Excellent. Well, Rob, let's get to some other people and help them with their games and tables and friends.
Let's do that. Let's do that, Matt.
Okay. I'm going to start with a letter about pirates.
Okay.
Rob doesn't have a lot of opinions on pirates, so this should be easy and quick. This letter
Nothing
says,
interesting to say.
letter from a listener on pirates. My campaign features the sea, and I plan to spend a lot of time there. As such, would you kindly help me out with creating pirate NPCs? Matey. Also, I like to do my research, and D&D is pretty much my life outside of work, thanks to COVID-19. I have found and bought a pirate class on the DM's Guild, but since I'm also a noob DM, I'm not sure if it is actually good or not. I've attached the pirate class so you can look it over and critique it. Thank you so much for your insightful feedback. As always, sincerely, Noob DM.
Thank you, Noob DM, for writing in. I took a look. Remember this. I took a look at this. Let's talk about the pirate NPC class first. I took a look at this.
Pirate PC class.
Sorry, pirate PC class. Excuse me. Yes, it is a third party pirate class. Here's my take on it. It's fine. However, it does not do anything particularly that a fighter or rogue could not do. It does not appear to add anything. I don't see any reason not to use it. I just don't know that it's necessary.
Here's the bigger question, Rob, is do you need like seafaring or pirate classes or subclasses in a game about pirates or seafaring?
I do not believe so. I think that 5th edition has broadened a lot of things to the point where, for example, rather than needing something like a steady, which is one of the abilities the pirate class has, you have advantage against being tripped or knocked prone. You can just put more points in acrobatics, or you can take any number of other, feats or skills or subclasses. Again, I'm not going to stop you, and I'm not going to think it's a bad thing to add this stuff. It's just not necessary.
Yeah.
You could skin a rogue or a fighter or any combination of classes to do the same thing just as well, and that's because the rules of 5th edition are very, very simple.
There's always been like kits or prestige classes, or in 5th edition's case, subclasses in D&D related to being pirates, and I don't know, Rob. I sort of the general opinion that they all kind of sucked. They're always like, you get a bonus to swinging on ropes or tying knots or or not falling over during rough weather. I'm just like, just take a regular rogue and strap a cutlass to your belt and put an eye patch on.
I mean, yeah, I have not bothered to create a pirate class for exactly this reason. Despite knowing more than I ought to about that any person has any reason to know about pirates, I can't think of a whole lot that I would add. I can't think of a way that I would make a pirate that I couldn't just do with like a rogue or a fighter or maybe like a College of Swords bard. I don't know. It's just like, pirate isn't occupation. It isn't.
Rob, but what happens to your players when they turn pirate? Oh, your father turned pirate, Will Turner. So now you're thinking of turning pirate yourself? How does one turn pirate?
Didn't you know that piracy is genetic, that it's passed from father to son? They've actually uncovered the R gene that I'm sorry. All right, anyway, I think it's a perfectly fine class. If your players like it, I think they should use it. I would, if I were going to make a pirate, I would make a I would do a lightly armored fighter with the duelist fighting style, or I would pick a basically just like a thief rogue or something,
or just be a druid and turn into a dolphin.
Even better. But I guess my main point is the only time I would say don't use a third party supplement is if it complicates or breaks the game, and this does not appear to complicate or break the game, so go for it.
Is it true that pirates were all communists?
It is true. It is true.
Yes,
Is that every single one had perfect left politics and was and was a dedicated proto-socialist, and that their ships were just like factories. And anyone who suggests that this is anything to the otherwise is a class enemy. To answer your first question, Noob DM, if I were going to pick, so there actually are like a ton of really interesting biographies of pirates, and I would encourage you to just like sort of poke through some of the famous ones to build your NPCs. Some good examples are Stead Bonnet, who was a gentleman farmer who went to sea because his wife was shrewish. This is in the historical record. He bought a ship and hired a crew, and went to sea to be a pirate because he did not like his wife. Blackbeard basically like took his ship and like made him, his bitch, which is great. There's of course Blackbeard himself, who was by all accounts, a dedicated English privateer who turned pirate when the war ended and he didn't feel like being legit. Bartholomew Roberts was a teetotaler and enacted harsh religious discipline on his ship. So, you get
a Puritan pirate.
Basically, yes, an early Puritan pirate. Jack Rackham was a lazy,
Calico Jack,
drunk layabout who was far outshined by the two women in his life. Anyway, there's lots of great. The reason why pirates have the cultural purchase that they do is that they do have pretty like big personalities. So what I would do is read through some of the historical accounts, pick and choose. Consider that most pirates were sailors before they were pirates, and that most of them were really opportunists. And depending on your setting and what you want to accomplish, kind of anybody can be a pirate, to be honest.
Just give anyone who wants to be a pirate has the sailor background. It's right in there.
Easy
right
peasy.
in the game.
Yeah. Great question, though, Jeremiah.
We should do a whole pirate episode one day.
Did we do?
We did a seafaring episode.
We did a seafaring episode.
But there's the narrower thing of pirates.
We always touch on it.
It's being a seafarer, but it's where you put on a cool hat.
That's right.
It's exactly the same otherwise.
Unironically, it is literally the same as being a sailor, except your legal status is different. I'm sorry. This is where I get out of control. Anyway, good question. Thanks for writing in. We'll talk about pirates in greater detail. Maybe we'll combine it with like a review of Skull and Shackles or something like that.
We've already done that, Rob. But
we already did do a review of Skull and Shackles.
I think the interesting thing is to remember, and maybe here's a broader point for people who are not interested in pirates, is that you should have things in your game like being a noble, being a knight, being a samurai, being a pirate that are very much independent from the mechanical choices your players make. Right. This is a legal classification. This is a classification based on your social rank or status, where you live, right? Your citizenship, etc., etc.
It's a bit like, all my players are criminals, or all my players are freedom fighters, or all my players are terrorists, right? These are ideas with meaning. However, they're sort of like broad sociological, legal categories, and yeah, so just think about that when you're constructing something like this. But sounds like you're off to a great start.
All right, Rob. As we say goodbye to the sea, give us our next letter.
So this one is from ages ago, and I hope that this DM is still listening, and perhaps might still find this useful. But it's an interesting question. So this is from our letter writer writes, "Hey, Rob and Matt. Thanks for being the best RPG podcast around. You're welcome. We try very hard. I strongly identify with your sense of what makes RPGs fun and cool, as well as your demonstrated anti-capitalist tendencies. Good, because I think you're the only listeners that we have left, are people exactly like you. I'm thinking of starting a game with some buddies from college, digitally, obviously. Most are fantasy trope experts, but not pen and paper players. I was thinking Savage Worlds for this purpose. Can you offer advice or critique on any of the following? What do you think of the idea of co-running or co-writing a game? A friend and I are both decently experienced DMs and have a lot of fun riffing off of each other. We were looking to do a 3 to 5 session game, and the central idea was that some cataclysmic event unites two previously isolated grand civilizations. Each of us would design one of the civilizations, play the NPCs, and rotate in some DMPCs while the other person was taking charge. We worked together on everything else. We were just wanting on advice on how to let the PCs design their characters, how much to keep from each other, anything else you might think be fun or wacky. Also, if this is an unworkable idea. We're both DMs who thrive on chaos and improv, but it's certainly possible there are unforeseen troubles you could clue us in on. Again, thanks so much, Mark.
Okay, so Mark's idea is that they and another dungeon master will create half of the world, or at least some part of the world together. They'll each create like one civilization on their own, and they'll switch off every couple months or something as the DM. It seems like if you were going to do this, maybe this is the way to do it, but to me, to be honest, because it seems like this is what Mark is looking for, this seems like more trouble than it's worth. Why not just switch off campaigns every 3 to 5 months? Or 3 to 5 weeks or sessions?
This is an interesting question because I have never co-run a game with another DM, and it's not because I can't play nice with others. It's just because of exactly what Matt said, is that generally this turns out to be more trouble than it's worth. And
if you have really large groups, like having someone, there to help you run the NPCs or monsters and keep track of things can be really helpful, right?
Yeah,
I have done that. But planning was all done together, right?
Yeah. And like a great example of this is that Matt and I play in games together all the time and have a ton of, synchronicity in what we like to do, and have never run a game together, and maybe someday.
Maybe we should.
We should maybe someday. But like the reason why, Matt, I think is just because like a time and schedule commitments. And
right. I'm going to like call you at like 2 a.m. and be like, hey, Rob, I'm ready to do some planning. I can't sleep.
Right. Maybe someday we will, but I guess like that's sort of my point here is like, I don't actually think it's a bad idea. I think it's kind of a neat idea, but it feels like, especially like given how chaotic things are, I guess like if I were in college, I would do this maybe, but like I'm not in college anymore. And if I were not like living close to, or, seeing my co-DM all the time, I just feel like this would end up being like kind of messy.
It's a great, if you could pull it off, you could, but the question is, what's the sort of like value added to the game? Because it's kind of less efficient to have 2 people plan, right?
Yeah.
It can make things easier if you're new or maybe a little bit nervous, and that's great, right? But if you're both confident in being a dungeon master,
the way that it's presented, definitely this is how you would do it. Though, given that that Mark says that, they're fine with improvising and chaos, maybe don't coordinate. Maybe just like have 2 sort of like co-running campaigns, or like swap off. But I feel like the whole like planning together thing, again, unless they really like to do this and it's like easy for them within their schedule, maybe just like have 2 campaigns that are related to each other, or trade off and just be like, take it in whatever direction you want, like a bit like an improv class. I don't know.
If you take the hex map and you divide along column, F, right? Like everything on this side is your responsibility. This side's mine. When the players decide to cross that line, we'll switch over. This could be fun. It just seems like, at least for me, the coordination thing, I think would be like, because it's hard enough to schedule a game of Dungeons & Dragons. Now you also have to schedule your planning time a little bit. Maybe you've got it divided up like Rob said, where you don't have to do this. But I think just caution is fine. If it works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, immediately abandon it, I think.
I also think that Matt's observation about like a value add is important. Like, not that there's no value in like working together with somebody to create a world, but also you don't need to work, like, let them do their part and you do your part and just sort of like roll with it, right? Like, it's like a minor version of what you do with your players all the time, right? You're like, here's what I know, make some characters, and just swap off DM duties and see how it goes. So this was from a while ago. So Mark, if you're still listening,
yeah,
let us know if you did this and how it went. It's a good question though, and I think the question of co-DMing or working together with somebody else on this is interesting, and we haven't covered it much. So I'm curious to know how it went. But yeah, I agree with Matt. I think it's a good idea, but advise caution.
Yeah, good luck, Mark. Here's a letter from Chelsea. DMs Matt and Rob, I have a couple questions about publishing a D&D 5e setting that I wrote for other DMs to use. I'm working on a setting guide complete with a gazetteer and places where published 5e races can fit in. I also want it to be uniquely strange. Why play a fantasy setting if you're just going to make medieval Western Europe again with goblins injected in? The problem is, I recently did some research after coming up with all this and realized that almost all of the best bits don't fall under OGL, that's Open Gaming License rules, especially with races. From what I understand, when publishing my own setting, I can only use the 9 races and sub-races in the SRD, that's the System Reference Document. Is there any way around this, or am I simply misinterpreting the rules? Any advice on this topic would be greatly appreciated. Chelsea. Our
Chelsea,
first legal question.
Chelsea, this is a good question, and I can't believe it hasn't come up yet, because very early on, when Matt and I were doing this podcast, I ran into this exact same problem. I had written, actually I still have written, it's just I need to go back and like actually finish it, but like a whole Eberron one-shot. And at the time, Eberron was not covered by the OGL. It was still like, behind the veil for wizards. And so I had to drop it. I didn't realize until I'd actually finished it that I could not publish this thing. And so, I mean, this is a warning to all of you aspiring game designers out there, is that be aware that you may run into problems here. The second thing is, I don't think you're misinterpreting the rules. There are ways around it, but they are additional work.
Now, the difference is that I think the thing that you're misinterpreting possibly is that looking at other third-party campaign settings, you are correct that you can't print, let's say, the rules for, wood elves, because wood elves are not in the SRD, only high elves are. However, you can, for example, use the name Wood Elves and talk about what they're like in your campaign saying. You just can't print the rules for them. So I looked at some other third-party settings, like the Midgard campaign setting for 5th edition, Tal'Dorei, which we talked about in this podcast, and they absolutely discuss half elves and wood elves and Drow in this campaigns and their campaign saying they just can't publish the rules for them.
Yeah. So if I understand correctly, as long as you're not taking the actual, like Matt said, the actual like mechanics from published D&D adventures or sources that are not included in the SRD, you're fine. You can even have, like Matt said, a wood elf. Or you can make a class or a race of, small green people and call them boblins. Like, I don't think that... I think you would have to try pretty hard to get in trouble here.
Yes. The only other caution is that there is a list of things in the... I'm looking at the first page of the SRD of, basically... proper nouns that you can't use.
Yeah.
Right? You can't use the 9 hells of Bator, right? But you could use the 7 hells, right? No one's going to stop you from doing that. You can't use illithids or beholders.
Right. There's some obvious and well-known things that you should avoid, like beholders, illithids, rust monsters. I'm trying to remember the whole list of very precise D&D monsters. Demogorgon, can't use these things. But you, again, as long as you're not just copy pasting from things that are not in the SRD, as long as you make some changes and publish your own, adjustments, I think you're probably mostly safe. However, want to be real clear here.
There are some things you can use. For example, you can use Demogorgon because he is the proper name of a demon from Greek mythology.
My bad.
Yeah.
Then there is a list, and it's the things you would expect. One caveat here is that Matt and I are not lawyers.
None of this advice. You haven't put $1 in our pockets. We're not your legal representation yet.
I also want to note that the title of our podcast, Dungeon Master of None, includes a trademarked term, and at any point wizards could drop the hammer on us if they wanted to. I don't think that they will, but who knows? So just be aware that this kind of depends partially on how like litigious Wizards wants to be. But
no, I was just going to say, for publishing your own campaign setting, right? Details about a world or about fantasy races in that world are absolutely fine. The SRD, yeah, I think just to back up, you probably get this, Chelsea, but maybe some of our listeners don't, right? The SRD is what rules you can reuse, right? And reprint, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are free. Maybe you can't actually reprint them, but I think you would include things that are in that open gaming license, as long as you include the license in your text, right? But there's nothing stopping you from, let's say, talking about what orcs are like in your fantasy campaign world, or what wizards in the school of divination are like. You just can't reprint the rules for the subclass College of Divination in your book.
That's important to clarify. And yeah, Chelsea may know this, but if you are thinking about publishing a third-party adventure, a third-party campaign, third-party class or subclass or anything, a race, you actually have like a lot of liberty to do that within the rules, just so long as you're not directly copying the Wizards of the Coast rules, which are not in the SRD.
Right. So all of that information is in the open gaming license. And again, Rob and I are big on like learning from examples. Why, if you have any of these questions or you don't trust us on this answer, which you shouldn't, go look at a bigger publisher who has made a third-party campaign setting for 5th edition D&D, right? Green Ronin has done some. Midgard Press has done some. Matt Mercer has done some. There's been 1 million done on Kickstarter. And if they were published and they didn't, go under, I think you can assume that they were not sued. So look at how they did it and copy that.
Right. Tal'Dorei is a great example here.
It's
a fully fleshed out campaign setting with some unique things in it. Look at that. If it passes muster there, you're probably safe.
And
yeah.
And Chelsea has a second part to her letter, which is, while working on this custom setting guide, I'm full of ideas, but I sometimes wonder if I'm getting too ambitious. Currently, I have a section on magic items, description of nearly how every 5e race fits in the world, write-ups on all major factions, information about a couple dozen gods and their religions, a bestiary and a gazetteer, the real meat of the book. There are 14 regions, entries on subregions and sites, random encounters, etc., etc. I keep finding more things I want to add. For example, a hex map of every region, a whole chapter for each of the 4 major cities, custom races. This book is being entirely written by me with help from a co-DM, so this is a big task for one question. My question is this: at what point do I say, no, that's enough? How much is too much? How do I curb my ambitions to set more realistic goals for myself in writing this? Any advice you could offer would be marvelous.
So, Chelsea, this is another good question, and I have adjusted my opinion on this. So normally I would say, or previously I would have said, you're getting too bogged down in the world building. You need to limit, your scope. You need to focus on what you really need. I still think that's mostly true. You need to ask yourself, what is necessary to run the game that I want to run? That being said, though, I had to drop 2 of my games, one which was pure homebrew, one which involved a lot of other homebrew. I was based on a published campaign because I did not have at that moment the extra time or bandwidth or focus to keep on building that world out. So if I were going to do another homebrew campaign, and I hope to someday, I actually would like to come in with basically a full campaign setting book. Now this is just me, and this is me knowing myself and realizing that if I don't prepare that ahead of time, I'm going to quickly get into pure improvisation territory, which tends to burn me out faster. So my answer is that as long as you're enjoying yourself, keep on doing that, as long as it doesn't stop you from actually running the game someday. But that may or may not be like the right choice for you, I guess. But I definitely used to be of the opinion that this kind of thing was, distracting from the purpose. But now, like, I would have been grateful if past Rob had written a shit ton more for present Rob in his campaigns to draw from. And so now
me is always such an asshole. He's got me into all these problems.
Such a fucking dick. So there's not like a good answer on like how much is like right and wrong, but
me not preparing for my campaigns. Yes, this fucking rules. This is awesome. Me running out of stuff
on my campaigns. What? This fucking
what the
sucks.
Fuck? Jesus fuck.
Reaping, sowing, etc. So, So if you're enjoying yourself and you think this is valuable, draw those hex maps, write all those pantheons. Be realistic.
I would love a campaign setting book with 4 detailed cities.
Yeah, but
as long as someone can, because you're publishing this or putting this together to share with other dungeon masters, as long as you can read the first 10 or 15 pages and get the general idea, go nuts on the details. But the other question is, if you have a gazetteer, a bestiary, and the factions, and like some maps and tables and stuff like that, that's all you need. So it's up to you whether you want to distinguish this campaign setting by being like, this is the campaign setting where you have lots of cool cities. If that's what you want to add to it, then add to it. But yeah, I agree with Rob. More prep on this kind of stuff can be make your life super easier in the future.
Just don't let it. I mean, there's no clear area where it's like, this is too far. Just, you don't have to design like every single pantheon of every single like minor society, or, detail the currency of, a far-flung location, which is unlikely to ever occur in the campaign. But if you're interested in that, if that's what you're excited about, put it in the campaign setting. It's if this is designed for consumption by others, then it's more important that it be organized well. Really, the length and the length of content does matter, but as long as it is put together in a way that makes sense, I've never been like sad or upset that a campaign book is too long. Just as long as it was like easy to like find what I was looking for.
The last thing I'll say on this is, it sounds like you're basically done with what would normally be considered a full third-party campaign setting. And I will point out that the kind of zine periodical format for these types of supplements has been gaining popularity. You've published the basics of the campaign setting, and then if there's interest in more, right? That interest from other people can help with burnout. And you can be like, okay, sure, we'll do the next month's installment will be 20 pages on the mythical city of Tertius Romus, and there it goes.
Good questions, though, Chelsea, and good luck. Let us know how that goes. Yeah, hope this is helpful. All right, I've got a short one from Jonathan. Jonathan writes, "Hey Matt and Rob, the only thing worse than watching D&D TikTok is listening to other people watch D&D TikTok. Please, for the love of all the gods and all of the D&D universes, never do that again. Long time, first time, etc. Thanks for all the quality content. Keep rolling those dice, Jonathan." Jonathan,
yes,
we apologize.
You're correct.
Consider this an official policy. It'll never happen again.
Never again. I'm gonna even pretend it didn't happen. Sorry, I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Great idea. Whose idea was that to put that in an episode? Jesus Christ. Here's a bunch of letters from many listeners, from Skeleton A on Twitter, from Ryan on who wrote us an email, and from Force, who wrote us a series of letters, and several others who basically sent me letters to my house, who went out and shouted at me to point out some of the many things we got wrong in Tasha's Guide to Everything, including how the Aberrant Mind's sorcerer powers are actually very powerful because you don't have to spend a spell slot. I got that wrong. What else? What else did we get wrong, Rob?
Well, so we forgot that, or we didn't know that the Blade Singer has their extra attack feature at 6th level is different now.
That's right.
We completely whiffed on that. Sorry. What else did we get wrong, Matt? One person sent us a list of 37 things that we got wrong. So I guess this is the part of
that rules.
we love it.
I mean that sincerely, and that
No.
I do love seeing how wrong I can be, just really laid out for me.
So listeners, thank you for taking the time to let us know how much we fucked up. And we're going to address some of those fuck ups now. I want to return to what I said at the beginning, though. Matt and I have jobs, and we do, like, here's the thing. If you listen to, unlike some other big name content creators who shall go unnamed, we do read all of the content that we review before we talk about it. That being said, we don't always have time to, like, go back and research and compare to UAs and things like that. So one thing that I have been getting wrong, and I'll admit, is that sometimes I forget or don't remember that we had already talked about something on a UA, and sometimes I get the details wrong about a previous publishing because I don't have all my books in front of me. I'm sorry about that, and I would like to do better. However, I would encourage you to not listen to this podcast for 100% accurate detailing of the mechanics as Wizards put them out. I do think our general review of the value of these classes is still mostly correct, but if you're looking for somebody to tell you exactly what's right and to get all the mechanics dialed in, unfortunately, that's going to come and go. Sometimes we'll get it right, sometimes we'll get it wrong. Matt and I have encyclopedic knowledge of a bunch of things, less and less often that is 5th edition. So that's our bad. So feel free to keep us honest. But yeah, so here's my promise to you is that if you send us emails telling us what's wrong, we'll talk about it on the show. So Matt, where do we want to start with what's wrong?
Several people pointed out we got the Aberrant Mind ability wrong. I don't think anyone pointed this out, but I also noticed I got the Bard of Creation ability wrong. It only lasts an hour per use, not all day. So,
okay,
my bad there. So lots of people sent us corrections. Some others that we failed to mention are Derek, but all of you who sent us in oh, hey, you got this one thing wrong about this one subclass, you were all insignificant and pathetic compared to listener Jordan, who, props to you, Jordan, sent us 37 things that are either wrong or technically wrong in what we said.
So
Jordan, yeah. you win the prize.
You win the prize. So I'm not going to address, I don't think we have time to address all of these things, but I do. Here's the thing. We got some things wrong, and I want to acknowledge the things that we got wrong. So the first we mentioned, right, we were wrong about the Aberrant Mind. Oops. Clearly we misread that. I thought there was something different about the Blade Singer, but I was going back and forth and could not figure it out. That's my bad. The new Blade Singer is better. Let's see. What else did... So here's some of the things that Jordan pointed out that we got wrong. Let's see. So Jordan points out...
So we got the undeniable logic was not the College of Creation. That was the College of Eloquence.
So Jordan pointed out that I said the armor is not as powerful as the others, and that the alchemist is potentially the weakest subclass in the game. That's true. That's 100% true. And my bad. I actually forgot the alchemist existed because I wasn't thinking about it because it's so boring and bad. I also got, this is a good point, and I'm sorry I got it wrong. I thought you had to commit to your armor model, but you can actually switch every short or long rest. So you don't have to be just a tank or a sneaky guy. You can swap back and forth. Again, I think I said I really like the armor, even with these things in mind, and that only makes it better. So sorry that I was wrong about that, but that's true. Let's see.
Twilight Clerics. We said they basically give their party 300-foot dark vision all the time. that's not true. They only get it. They have to spend a spell slot to get it. So I take everything back I said about this. However, if it was all the time, I would call it bad design still. I stand by that. But if you have to spit, all we ask is for things to happen that are interesting. Players should usually have to spend some kind of resource, especially spellcasters.
Jordan points out that Circle of Spores was printed in Ravnica, so was the Oath of Order, the Eloquence Bard, and the Glory Paladin were in Theros. I got no excuse for that because we reviewed both of those books. My bad. There was a change to the Spores Druid, which is it's no longer poison damage from melee weapon attacks. It's necrotic. My bad. Also,
Jordan points out that I said there was 100 subclasses. There are in fact 104, and 19 of them have no magic. So that's 18% of subclasses have no magic. Not my 10%. I think is what I was saying. So.
Shout out to Alex Klippinger, who also called us out on this, was listing a bunch of subclasses that we forgot. I want to point out that Matt was saying this, not me. And
this was all me. This is my own.
I take no
non-magical hobby horse. Let's see. Jordan points out that Matt lamented his own morality. Get over it. Everyone dies. That's a fair criticism. My own morality. My own mortality.
Mortality.
Screwed that up, guys.
Jordan says the brute is boring and lame. Well, that's just your opinion, man. Let's see.
I think that's our final response to all these criticisms. That's just like your opinion, man.
However, most of this is correct. Sorry, we got it wrong.
Thanks for writing in with some corrections. There's so much new stuff in Tasha's.
I was a little overwhelmed. I will admit, if I had wanted to do a good job, which clearly I didn't, I would have gone back and read a bunch of the previous books to make sure that I was being more careful. But for some reason, I thought that I knew where all those subclasses were coming from. Clearly, I missed a few. I missed a couple of things. I apologize if you feel misled. As always, you should read these things yourself. And by the way, nothing in Tasha's before or after is so bad you shouldn't use it. I think we made that clear. And if anything were completely broken and we were don't use this, we would be very careful to say this is busted beyond repair. So if you disagree with us, which you're allowed to do, feel free to ignore our advice. But hopefully our review of Tasha's was somehow useful to you. I'll notice that nobody wrote in saying anything about or talk about puzzles, which means we were right.
Yeah. We should stick to DM's advice and leave the player options to people who are better at player options.
Probably.
Yeah. There were many things we didn't get to, but thank you, everyone. Derek, Jordan, Skeleton, Alex, and everyone else, Force, everyone else I'm forgetting who sent us good corrections on Tasha's.
Also, if we missed anything else, by all means, write in. We will own up to our mistakes.
Maybe.
Also, it's not like we've never made mistakes before, but this is definitely the first. This is definitely the time we've gotten the most responses about what we got wrong. So, our bad here, team. Thanks for keeping us honest. We clearly missed the mark a bit, but we're happy to make corrections if we got something wrong. So thank you for taking the time to write in. So we've got one more comment from Force Reckon, and they write in, and there's a bunch of things here, so I'm just going to focus on a couple of things that we want to respond to. First is, you made a comment a while back about the Angry GM and Cinema Sins. I don't actually remember commenting on Cinema Sins.
That was you, Rob. You said
Did I say that?
If you like Cinema Sins, don't listen to our show.
My bad. Not my bad, because I do mean that. I just don't remember saying it, but that's consistent with what I believe, so sorry. While I appreciate and understand that it's not your thing, your comment, specifically mine, of saying if this is your thing, get out, even jokingly was pretty upsetting. I'm sorry about that, actually. I apologize if my loose way with words ever offends any of you. Anybody can listen to this podcast. I just feel like sometimes certain things, if you don't like that or you do like that, you're not going to be a good fit. But if you do and you don't care, stick around.
Also, as someone who's known Rob for a long time, when Rob says, if you like this, get the fuck out, that means I don't like this. And Rob has rarely cared whether you continue to like it or not.
I've never,
hyperbolic way of shock jock way of speaking.
That's right.
There.
Listen, we're just two podcasters talking big. Anyway, if that's not your Force Reckon continues, if that's not your thing, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you why they're good or what. Personally, I enjoy the parodized, overly angry, cynical, judgmental jokes and attitude that both of them take. And I've learned a lot about minor jokey tropes, plot holes, and things to keep an eye for when creating a narrative. I've learned a lot of things in terms of creating flowing descriptions, home and house rules, design theory, etc. from the Angry GM. Ignoring their habit of writing the way that they do actually have genuinely good advice and ideas. Though if they are stolen, I can't say. Let's see. The comment, though, was over the idea that this kind of content was childish in essence. Some part of me knows you're joking or believes you do, as it's a form of humor that I believe both do well, even if not for you. I'm not digging for an apology or anything. I just wanted to explain in my own honest way, as you've always asked, how that came off to me. As someone who enjoys and utilizes that type of humor and has found a lot of value in their work, but who also respects you, enjoys your humor, and finds a lot of value in your work, I wanted to start with that, as this is the only negative thing I have to say. I greatly enjoy your show, and I agree with you on a lot of things. I don't expect you to change your opinion, but it seemed a bit weird and harsh over someone potentially enjoying a form or style of content that you don't. I appreciate this content, this comment. And I do actually, I want to apologize if it felt like I was coming off as harsh. I have to remember that I personally have been exposed to and thinking about that form of humor for what feels like an eternity. And I am so tired of it. But there was a time.
I think people think we're really old. We're in our like early 30s. We're not that old. People are like, these podcast hosts are super old.
I feel old when I feel old when I read on listeners' mail. But no, but the thing is, like, we're barely in high school when 9/11 happened. Like, I know.
You know, we're
I know.
Of course, my students were not born when 9/11 happened, so.
So we are old, but we're not old. No, this is a good point. But like, I guess the thing is, like, I've been on the internet for a really long time. What feels like a really long time.
That is true. We've been on the internet for too long.
And so, like, this type of humor, I'm very, very weary of it. I find it to be cynical. I don't think it's very funny. I think it's kind of manipulative. I think it's harmful. But this is like it's true that this is like a personal preference. I have swung from the, cynicism side to, overt earnestness in my old age, in my early 30s, right? And I might swing back, who knows? But the truth is that I used to find that stuff funny, so I probably shouldn't be so critical. I don't think the Angry GM is very good at giving advice, and I don't like the way that they approaches it. I think that it's hostile in a way that is unhelpful. That being said, if you like it and it's useful, by all means, keep reading it. I think it's a problem.
I am sure there is useful advice there. So
yeah, I'm
not going to read it. I will also mention, I don't know if you saw this, Rob, but Force Reckon adds an addendum to this message, which says, so I'm not sure if you have read criticism about Rob's comment about if you like the Angry GM, get out. I just got to the episode where you go into more detail about why you don't like him, and hoo boy. I still stand by the critique that you shouldn't tell people to go away for liking a certain type of humor, but Jesus, guess I will never be reading that blog again. I don't look too deep into the personal life, greater presence of people. I only pull occasional advice or entertainment from. But him or they being a pro-Trump, anti-COVID, anti-masker thing has soured my opinion of that blog. I'll keep using the good advice I got, but won't be checking in anymore.
I forgot about that too. I do want to say, so like the other thing that Matt and I don't like, actually, I don't feel like we criticize that many people because this is not a drama podcast, but like, I don't know, we're pretty fast and loose with our opinions. The other people that we've gotten pushback for criticizing are the Penny Arcade guys. And so like with all of this in mind, I want to say, I don't think any like less of you it does not matter to me if you like these things. Matt likes a lot of things that I don't like. the point is like, this is the problem is like, you should not, and this is not a criticism of you, Forrest Reckon. I am using this as a launching off point so that if anybody hears me run my mouth about a thing that I don't like, they don't think that it's a criticism of them. You know, your personal consumption choices are not like the reason why anything is good or bad. And you're not a good or bad person for who you happen to enjoy. There are a lot of awful people out there who create good art. And you should probably not support like pedophiles and murderers, right? But you know, it's almost impossible to like be perfect about this. And so when we criticize the Angry GM, you know, we are approaching it from the point of view that it's not helpful advice. I also happen to dislike the guy personally. I'll own up to that. But, you know, don't worry too much if you do happen to like it. If you happen to continue to read Petty Arcade, even if you like that garbage, you know, if you just don't give him any money, but like if you like that, you know, awful OGL, you know, hyper realistic shit from those white supremacists, like if you download for free and play it, I won't be like, I don't care. Just like, it's just something to bear in mind, right? And so when we level these criticisms, I'm also like very sensitive to criticisms of things that I care about, so I get it, but I don't want you to hear that coming from me and feel like that's you know, aimed at your personal choices. You know, I don't. You're welcome to continue to listen and to enjoy our content. If that is if those are ideas you can hold simultaneously in your mind, then I'm impressed and good for you.
Yeah, I think going forward, 2 rules for if we're ever going to put someone on blast on the show, Rob, is does their shit suck, and do they seem to be like an awful person in general? Because if the answer is like, you know, yes, but no, you know, if it's only as yes and yes.
And this is
I think we've hopefully kept to that rubric.
And that's
like,
I mean, I think so too. And that's how, I mean, I know you can't be perfect about this, but like
there are plenty of nice people who write bad RPG stuff. And that's okay because they're nice people. They'll try again later and
like,
it's fine.
I think that, like, again, sorry if you like it, but like, I think Will Wheaton is insufferable, but he doesn't seem like an asshole. You know, and same with like, I don't like any of like Lin-Manuel Miranda's shit, but like, you know, I'm not gonna, these seem like nice enough guys, right? Like I don't really care about like putting them on blast. You know, there's a lot of people out there whose stuff I don't care for, but I'm not gonna like blow them up unless they also appear to be assholes. And this is the problem with the Angry GM, with CinemaSins, you know, with that whole style is that they are assholes to other people. Now,
right.
This is
the Angry GM has deep problems, and I think he made himself stop posting and like deleted all of his accounts, but going like deep into like harassing people like during Gamergate and just like, you know, being up at like 2 a.m. arguing with people on Twitter about like wearing masks and, you know, how you should vote for Trump is just like deeply fucked up person.
Yeah, and this is why we criticize the Penny Arcade guys, because like people were like, this made me uncomfortable or hurt my feelings, and instead of just saying, okay, I'm sorry, they doubled down, and then they were really shitty to those people. And like, look, if we've done wrong here, if we somehow like missed the mark, let us know. But like, again, maybe we should just not say anything, but like that's Matt and I's metric. You know, if we're gonna like talk about somebody, and that's really not the purpose of this podcast, we only do it if it comes up for a good reason, but like it's because they're being a shithead, right? It's because their ideas are bad and they're being an asshole. And so that being said, there are a lot of good creators who are assholes. There are a lot of, you know what? The world contains assholes, right? You're gonna have to like live with them, work with them, be around them. It's fine if you like something that's made by an asshole. I don't want you to feel bad about that. So I apologize if I did make anybody feel bad with me hyperbolically saying things like "get the fuck out."
Yeah. And please continue to listen to our show if you like the Angry GM. I'm sure he has like 1 million times more reads than our show has listens.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
However, we have better a better philosophy for GMing, which is more good vibes, less fake hatred that then turns into actual hatred. So
right. That was that. Yeah.
Don't fake a persona until you become it. Until you want to become the Steven Crowder of D&D advice or whatever.
Don't pretend to be the Joker until you actually become the Joker. Don't joke about being Jokerfied and then actually be the Joker. That's
Rob, I'm going to become the Joker of emails. Here's a question about splitting the party from Sam. Dearest, darlingest Matt and Rob, I'm still going through your back catalog, so please forgive me if you've discussed this before. I have a party member in my homebrew 5e game who insists on splitting up. Sometimes he splits off on his own, sometimes he insists on going off with a partner, and sometimes the others will even suggest it. Triple crown of splitting the party right there.
Yeah, that's a trifecta of bad.
Yes.
Yeah, no, this is. I'm sorry, I can't wait to answer this question.
I, of course, have no problems with this if everyone agrees to do it, except it keeps happening, and now they're splitting up, going down a fork in the road that will surely get most of them killed. And yes, I did offer them a lot of warnings in-game. I love my players, and we otherwise have very few issues, but what is the right thing to do here? They've narrowly escaped a few split-ups before, but this lone wolf has already lost one character. Rip Bold the Kobold, and I don't want them all to lose their characters they've grown to love. I can certainly pull punches, but to do so drastically changes the major elements here to make them survivable by a pair on one side and a group of 3 on the others feels like cheating in some way. Not to mention, a party split is generally stinks because half the players have to sit around while the other group does their thing. Thank you for the excellent podcast, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Your last point is, I think, the most important one here. There's nothing inherently wrong with splitting the party, aside from being a tactically bad decision, but it's boring. It means that either you have one guy going off and doing stealth stuff while everybody else sits around on their hands, or you have to divide your attention between 2 separate things. And
now, there are great other systems and many ways of handling splitting the party where it can be like less boring, right? Where you do the sort of montage of what everyone is doing really, really quickly. Some systems are designed to have you split the party. But, definitely D&D as it's traditionally played is not one of those systems.
And so I think we have answered this before, but I'm happy to talk about it again because it is a sticky problem that keeps happening. So it sounds like you've already handled it pretty well. What I tend to do is, if this comes up, is I issue, I do a lot of, are you sure you want to do that? And then, as a demonstration, if the one person goes off on their own, they run into what is a party's worth of bad guys or like a party problem, and they have to solve it or they get punished for it. I mean, I don't like to do that very often, but like, don't pull punches. But it sounds like you already killed somebody for doing this. And if they're not,
she's saying she's already tried to teach them a lesson, right? They've already lost a character.
So with that in mind, so that's my general advice. You've already done that. It sounds like you have. I think it might be time just to sit down with your party and to tell them out of game, this is causing problems for me as a DM. It is hard for me to manage. I have to keep killing you, right.
And it sounds like, based on your letter, I could be reading too much into this, is that your players don't want their characters to die and you don't want to kill their characters, right? It's maybe not that kind of game.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
I would say, just kill their characters again, but maybe that's not something you want to do in that game, which is totally fine. So don't do that. Let's come up with another solution, which is, it does seem like, as Rob said, the one thing you haven't tried yet is like a little sit down in the first 5 minutes of the game being like, I looked over our past couple sessions. Half of the time, the party was not all in one place. This is causing me a little stress. Not saying you can't ever split the party. Obviously, lots of you have things you want to go off and do on your own. But in the future, can we try and keep it together for like 80% of the time? Just for my own sanity.
This is what I recommend. Because if the end goal, and it sounds like it is, the end goal is to have them not split. Then what you're doing isn't working, and that's not your fault. Also, by the way, because this is exactly what I would do, and somehow they're not picking up on it. And I guess if everybody's having fun splitting and getting murdered, then I guess you can keep doing that. But again, that doesn't sound like what everybody wants. So, given that they're not responding to the obvious like feedback of when we split the party, people die. I would just say it outright. Just say, you can split the party, but like it's harder for me to run. Your characters are going to run into problems they can't handle on their own and probably die. I'm trying to be realistic here, and just like put that out there.
I would now. So I think that's the nice dungeon master way of running it. You could do it again, and if they didn't get it the first time, they will certainly get the message now that we put our party in half. We did not have the resources to deal with this challenge. Characters suffered, right? Now, that would be my way of handling it again, right? Because, again, this is my personal opinion of the way I run my games. Players find out, there is quite an advantage to splitting the party in one sense, and that you can cover twice or 3 times or 4 times, depending on how you divide your party, the ground in the same amount of time. It's incredibly dangerous, right? That's a trade-off. My players are happy to make that trade-off only when in the most dire of circumstances, which makes splitting the party a known risk that I think players can enjoy. However, the other part of your letter that we didn't really get to because it was at the beginning was just, you do have one habitual party splitter, which is the source of all of this tension. So another way of addressing this, right, is cut down the tall trees, right? And I mean that in a nice way, in that like instead of having a whole group chat, right, you could be like, hey, your character goes off on your own all the time. Can you cut that back 50%?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the nice GM way is to sit down with the whole party, even though you know that there is a one problem player, right? That way nobody feels called out.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be.
I think the better way.
You don't have to be nice. You can just like sit him down and be like, or him or her. Sorry, I'm just making assumptions here. Sit them down and say, hey.
Oh, no, it's a he. We got the pronoun player.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sit him down and say, hey, this is causing problems, and your PC is going to keep dying, and also maybe just don't do that anymore. I've had this conversation like once or twice. It's usually goes fine. I don't know, or it might not. It sounds like you've tried like in-game solutions, and you've done a good job. This is exactly what I would do. So I think it's time to, if it is really a problem, just talk it out.
Now, and I think why we're trying to give you so many options here, Sam, is because, of course, like most things with dungeon mastering, there's no one right solution, but hopefully you could select among these and choose the one that you know will work best with the way you dungeon master and your players. The other option, right, is to do what you kind of suggest at the end, which is to pull the punches, drastically change major elements so that everyone survives on either side. I have the feeling that based on what you put in your letter, that's not the thing that you want to do, because you feel like that would be cheating, and you want to run your game in a way that feels more realistic, at least, or less metagamey to your players. The enemies don't automatically scale down to the party side, and that is completely fine. You don't have to do that, but as you pointed out, that is an option, right? You can rescale your encounters, but I would say go with whole group conversation, and give your players a chance to escape, right? if always, I think one of the things that frustrates me a lot about 5th edition rules is that when you look at the character sheet and when you look at kind of things like attacks of opportunity and stuff, all things I'm fine with. I'm not saying get rid of any of these things. It's just players' default response is almost never to run away, even when they're outnumbered, even when they're split up. We need to encourage that as a dungeon master. And maybe, if we cheat anywhere, if players are trying to run away, they get away. Think about most action movies and stuff. If people are trying to run away, they almost always get away.
Yeah. And at worst, right, you if they really fuck it up, I don't know, kill one of them. The wash rule, one person dies, right? Don't
kill the most beloved character.
Yeah, have somebody have the most popular PC die heroically or tragically to save the others. But if they try to run away, I think that I agree with Matt. Like, most of them should get away, or most of the times they should all get away. But and this is a problem. Well, now we're getting off in the weeds, but like, I think this should be true for D&D all the time, except nobody ever runs away because it's not really communicated that that's an option most of the time. So, yeah, I don't know how to fix that exactly, but it would be better if players were aware that that was an option, and it would, again, like a movie, usually go the way it's supposed to.
The last piece of advice I have is be very careful when you have a habitual party splitter and your game is a 5th edition D&D game that is not supposed to encourage lots and lots of party splitting. Make sure you're not rewarding the party splitter with more of what they want, right? If someone goes off on their own all the time and then gets 80% of the in-game, in-table spotlight, that's kind of a reward if that's something that player or that character likes, and they might keep doing it, whether consciously or unconsciously or not. And, if you make sure that people going off their own is handled snappily and quickly, and you go back to the majority of the players quickly, they may tend to do it less, and when they do, it's less disruptive. So, when someone goes off on their own, take a second, collect your thoughts, find the one thing that they're encounter, set yourself a 5-minute mental or physical timer, make sure that gets taken care of so that you can go back to everyone else.
That's good advice too. Yeah. So hopefully, Sam, hopefully you figure this out. Let us know how it goes. But yeah, a best of luck, I guess.
Good luck, Sam.
Okay, Matt. We answered a lot of questions, a lot of emails. I know
Sure we
that
did.
there's more. Sorry we got all those things wrong about Tasha's. We will do better. Do better, Matt.
I'm trying.
We're going to have a nice, thorough self-crit session after this where we atone for our failures. If
We actually might.
We may actually do that. If you have other questions for us, and again, by the way, I'm serious. If we got anything else wrong in Tasha's that you think like we need to address, send us an email. But email us at dmofnone@gmail.com. Add us on Twitter at dmofnone. How else? I don't remember how else they can contact us. Leave us a review, a rating. Give us those 5 stars. Give us a negative review. If you're really mad about Tasha's, go ahead and write down that we're wrong about Tasha's.
If you'd like to join us for our next Dungeon Master of None book club, we are reading N.K. Jemison's first book in the epic fantasy Pentagy trilogy.
It's
I don't know.
trilogy.
I'm only on the first book, so I don't know how big it is.
There's
Trilogy,
3.
the 5th season in the Broken Earth series. So if you would like to, be ready for our next book club, it is the 5th season by N.K. Jemison. If you've already read it or finish it before we publish our episode, send us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. Gonna read it soon, and we're gonna review it. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep rolling them dice.
You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll those dice. Man, life's so ill. So much pressure make a nigga might go still. Gotta get creative like a Spike Jonze film. If you wanna pay the rent and keep the lights on still. Look at my